Hello! So today this is the first time I am shooting a video like this, which I'm really excited about. So I love makeup, but another one of my huge passions is books. I work at a bookstore, I love reading, I love writing. I think half of the time I am probably dozing somewhere in another world as opposed to the one that we currently live in. But anyways, that ties me into I am going to start adding book reviews onto my channel. I did a makeup review that was for this book right here, which is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Maas, I say Maas, I believe it is Maas. Or maybe it's Moss. Now I'm doubting myself. But anyways, this is actually the third book in a trilogy that is going to expand into other books that are inside of the world. So what it is part of is I'm doing like a beauty and a brain series where I am going to be doing book reviews and then also doing makeup reviews inspired by the books. So I will insert right now an image of the makeup look that I did for this book right here. And yeah, let's go ahead and get into the review of these books. So this is a trilogy, I think I just said that. The first book in the series is this one right here, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses. The second one is A Court of Mist and Fury. And then, since I am running out of hands, eek! The third one is A Court of Wings and Ruin right here. And this is the one that the makeup look was inspired by. But this is one of those series where I don't want to talk too much about the third book because if you haven't read it, one, if you like young adult, the genre young adult, and you like fantasy, I think you'll really like these. They are on, young adult is that's like a whole different topic and a whole different video. Young adult contains so many different things nowadays as far as how explicit it gets, what the content is, and blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to talk about that. Because I think that's a personal thing. These do have sex in them. Some people care, some people don't. But I think young people like reading about that, if anything, just as much as us older people. But anyways, book review, because that's what we are here for. So, A Court of Wings and Ruin is the third in the series, like I was saying. So before I talk a little bit about this, I'm going to talk about it but not give away any spoilers. But what I do want to do is for A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is the first in the series, I'm just going to read really quickly for you the Dusk Jacket to give you kind of a brief little synopsis, and then I'll talk about it and give you my own little synopsis. But it says, when 19-year-old huntress Feyre kills a wolf in the woods, a beast-like creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not an animal, but Tamlin, one of the lethal immortal fairies who once ruled their world. As Feyre dwells on his estate, her feelings for Tamlin transform from icy hostility to a fiery passion that burns through every lie and warning she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But an ancient wicked shadow over the fairies' lands is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it, or doom Tamlin and his world forever. And then, New York Times and USA Today bestselling author Sarah J. Maas comes a seductive and breathtaking new book that blends romance, adventure, and fairy lore into her most unforgettable story yet. Because she's originally known for her Throne of Glass series, which is what originally got her big. But that is a little Dusk Jacket synopsis. So essentially, a lot of people like to say that this has a lot of the themes from Beauty and the Beast, and I agree with that very, very loosely. It has some very slight nods to it, but those nods are so slight for me that they are just very common fairy tale tropes that she pulls from. It does kind of have some of the beast elements in that Tamlin has some beastie qualities to him that you discover as you read the books, and Feyre is a beautiful... Well, she's a huntress, actually. She's a beautiful huntress who gets pulled into this magical world, and she is the key, potentially, to breaking a spell, but after that, the similarities between Beauty and the Beast and this are like -10. But people do like to make that reference to it. It is definitely fantasy, and I love it so much. The worlds that Sarah J. Maas creates, I think, are awesome. And more than that, the characters she creates are characters that I just love the characters that she creates. And even though sometimes in her writing, it happened more in her more recent books, even though sometimes predictable things may happen, it doesn't bother me because there's always enough unpredictable things that happen, as well as you just love the characters so much where there are certain things where it's like, if it didn't happen, you'd be heartbroken. So when she gives you that like satisfaction of what your heart has been like dying to happening, it just makes me so happy. But I definitely recommend this series. A Court of Thorns and Roses, the whole series really is about Feyre and her journey of being pulled from the human world into the fairy world. And there's court politics, there's magic on a large scale, there is love, there is betrayal. It's got it all. Awesome fighting scenes too, it's got it all. I know that seems really, really vague, but I really don't want to give anything away because the series is worth reading. But as far as highlighting things that I love about her, I know I just said her character development. I love how she addresses her characters, her world, the magic that she has in it is something that's truly special and fun and just gets you excited. There's epic battle scenes. This is more talking about A Court of Wings and Ruin. There are huge battle scenes, so many things come to a conclusion, and then more questions are also brought up with other characters that can be answered down different stories. You get new characters in this one. It still is from the main perspective of Feyre and someone else. If you've read the other two, you'll know who I'm talking about, who I love absolutely adore. If any book will make me a fangirl, it is this one, because I just sexy men of awesomeness are in this book and they make me so happy. But I love it because she writes compassionate male characters as well, though. Like her male characters as well as her female characters, they always have a strength, but a vulnerability to them as well. She's very good at giving you characters that you love, but that have their flaws and have their fractures that they have to work through too. And they have to make hard choices. They have to make hard choices. Her characters make their own choices. They are not forced into being paths of good or bad, and no one is ever truly, well, the main villain is just truly bad. But a majority of the characters in this story, even the ones that you may not like, all of them have good and bad as part of them, which I think is what adds so much to her stories a lot of the times. Especially Tamlin in this book. I really like how she addressed Tamlin in this book. And then Feyre has to go to some dark places and accept herself. Everyone has to go to some dark places. You've got characters, all the characters from the first book as well as the second book are brought back in here. It made me cry at one point. I was reading it in public and I was trying not to cry in public, so that was a really bad idea. It was at the end of the book. There's this one scene that just was like a knife, and it just got me. And it's a beautiful scene, but it definitely I was like, why am I reading this in public right now? I should have known better than to do that. And I don't know, I'm kind of tempted. If you haven't read the first two in the series, then I'm just going to say pause this video right here and do not listen further. I know that that's super tempting, but pause, because I'm going to read the Dusk Jacket for this one, and that is going to give away things that happen in the first as well as the second book. So pause. Make sure you actually go away if you haven't read the first two. Go away. Shoo. Okay. And for those of you who have read the first two but not this one, this is the Dusk Jacket. A nightmare. I'd told Tamlin I was the nightmare. Feyre has returned to the Spring Court, determined to gather information on Tamlin's maneuverings and the invading king threatening to bring Prythian to its knees. But to do so, she must play a deadly game of deceit, and one slip may spell doom not only for Feyre, but for her world as well. As war bears down upon them all, Feyre must decide who is to trust among the dazzling and lethal High Lords, and hunt for allies in unexpected places. In this thrilling third book of the Court of Thorns and Roses series by #1 New York Times bestselling author Sarah J. Maas, the earth will be painted red as mighty armies grapple for power over the one thing that could destroy them all. And, I have to. This is on the back of the book, so I feel like it's okay for me to read this to you, but I'm going to read this as well. The painting was a lie, a bright, pretty lie, bursting with pale pink blooms and fat beams of sunshine. I'd begun it yesterday, an idle study of the rose garden lurking beyond the open windows of the studio. Through the tangle of thorns and satiny leaves, the brighter green of the hills rolled away into the distance. Incessant, unrelenting spring. If I'd painted this glimpse into the court the way my gut had urged me, it would have been flesh-shredded thorns, flowers that choked off the sunlight for any plant smaller than them, and rolling hills stained in red. But each brushstroke on the wide canvas was calculated. Each dab and swirl of blending colors meant to portray not just idyllic spring, but a sunny disposition as well. Not too happy, but gladly, finally healing from horrors I carefully divulged. I suppose that in the past weeks I had crafted my demeanor as intricately as one of these paintings. I supposed that if I had also chosen to show myself as I truly wished, I would have been adorned with flesh-shredding talons and hands that choked the life out of those now in my company. I would have left the gilded halls stained red, but not yet. Ooh! Even the kitty, sorry, my cat, well, not my cat, my roommate's cat, my cat's being quiet. My roommate's cat is howling at the door because he wants me to open it, but then as soon as I open it, he sits and doesn't walk out of the room. So he can wait 5 more minutes while we finish this video, I think. But, read this book, read the whole series. It's just phenomenally good. Even if you're here and I told you to go away and you didn't go away because you wanted to hear about this one, but she brings back the Weaver, she brings back the Bone Carver. There's a new monster that I absolutely love that scares the crap out of Cassian. There is an interesting dynamic with Nesta. There are so many things that happen. My only critique, if I have to say anything, and this is kind of about this series as well as the Throne of Glass series, is I love romance. I am a romance girl through and through and through. I love the main characters to have a romance, but Sarah J. Maas has gotten a little too matchmakery, where every single character gets paired up nowadays. That's good and bad, totally depends on what you want. There's some characters, though, where I was like, maybe I'd like to see him go down a different path or do something different, but she's gotten a little matchmakey. But even then, to be honest, that doesn't really bother me. And, there's these awesome battle scenes at the end that you've been, waiting for come. It's the final conclusion to what is going on between the King of Hyperion, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong, just let it go, between the king as well as the kingdoms and what happens to the wall, and just, read it, but yes, that is me just saying how awesome this book is, and how not only are there big battles in it, but there's internal battles as well. And just, the second book is my favorite. I will say that. The second book out of this is always going to be my favorite, I think. I liked the first one. The second one was just so emotionally good. Except for towards the end of the second book. The second one was great, but then the last 50 pages of it, I think her pacing got a little off and she put almost too much at once. It didn't bother me, but I've heard from a lot of people, they're like, and then the end, and we're like, oh my gosh. And I was like, that... A lot happens, for sure, but all of it is resolved in this. So read this book. Have a good day, night, evening, wherever you are, and goodbye.